This might sound weird, but I think in the future we might actually be seeing an old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3 crossover event. I know what you're thinking, Chef, what have you been smoking and can I get some? But seriously, there's a lot of references from both games to the other game, so let's talk about it. Yo, what's going on guys, my name's Chivalric and today I want to be talking about the idea of old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3 possibly crossing over in the future when it comes to a certain update. What I'm talking about is having the exact same update at the same time in both games, but obviously in the respective style when it comes to each game. Think about it this way, releasing the same boss, for example Zamorak, in both old school and RuneScape 3 at the same time, but then in their own style. I hope this topic tickles your brain like it does mine, so give it a like on the video if you do enjoy it. Let me know in the comment section down below, what are your theories, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. So, where does this idea even come from? As I said in the intro, Chef, what have you been smoking? Well, first of all, I do want to be clarifying something. I'm completely sober, but that's not what I'm trying to say. No, I do understand that when it comes to lore, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a big lore guy. If you want lore, you need to go to Pride Slayer or Let's Discuss RS's channel. However, I'm not a big lore guy, but one thing that I do understand is that there are a lot of lore things that are in both games because, well, they are the same game, they are the same world, and obviously all the quests up until 2007 are also in RuneScape 3 as in old school RuneScape, so obviously if they build upon a questline, they will probably come to the same conclusions as the other game did. Obviously, old school RuneScape is built onto the vampire questline after RuneScape 3 did, and it's quite similar to it, obviously in their own style and their own respective manner, and the other way around RuneScape 3 when they're building on something like the recently mentioned Vorkav. And that's kind of where I got this idea from. RuneScape 3 recently had a quest called Dead and Buried where Vorkav was mentioned, and if you don't know what Vorkav is a boss in old school RuneScape that is a undead dragon. It just happens that we just got a skill regarding undead things when it comes to necromancy and stuff, and that is quite interesting that we will probably get Vorkav in the future. We're gonna get another boss in the future as well, in, well, literally the next few months, so how about that being Vorkav? I think a lot of people think that it would be, and I think that makes sense from a lore perspective, at least from what I understand, because it was mentioned heavily, so there's probably a good reason for it, right? Like, I saw the name a lot and it got me very hyped. And when it comes to old school RuneScape, a lot of things recently happened as well. Obviously there we see a Desert Treasure 2, which seems to be an amazing quest, and Slisk appeared into it, which obviously yet again makes sense because the same lore, and obviously we absolutely love Slisk and I really hope they go into the same epic direction as RuneScape 3 went into. But they also had Zhao Tak, which is the necromancer god, and well, we just got a necromancy skill. See what I'm trying to say here? There's like a lot of things kind of like alluding to the other game with what's currently going on, and that really got me thinking, how epic would it be if we got the same content at the same time in each game? And I know every game, old school RuneScape 3 is a lot different, right? RuneScape 3 is really focused on abilities and dashing out damage and rotations, etc. Where old school is more movement and prayer flicking and that kind of stuff. When it comes to combat, of course, and RuneScape 3 is fast experience rates, old school RuneScape is slow experience rates. There's so many differences between the games. But how epic would it be if at some point we would get the same boss at the same time released in each game? And what I'm talking about, for example, let's take Vorkav as an example, right? Where old school RuneScape would release a quest like Dragon Slayer 2, which unlocks Vorkav in old school RuneScape, at the same time as RuneScape 3 unlocks maybe Dragon Slayer 2 as well, but they all do it in their own separate styles, but have a boss fight that is similar and have unlocks, obviously, that make sense with each game coming from the bosses as well. And I think that could really bridge the gap and kind of gives a perspective in a way between the both games from both players, because then you have the same piece of content that you can directly compare that got developed at the exact same time and be like, hey, look, our Vorkav has this mechanic and your Vorkav has this mechanic. And obviously old school RuneScape mechanics would probably be a bit simpler. I'm not saying easier, but simpler, because RuneScape 3 can do a lot more crazy stuff when it comes to all the abilities with defensives and all the other stuff that's going on. But still, I think it would just really be good, because I feel like right now old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3, besides the debate that's going on about which game is better, I think both games are incredibly good, and I think both games, we should just be happy that they both exist, let's be honest, because I think a lot of game franchises would love to have like an older version and a new version for people to play, whoever want to play whatever version, right? And I think it would really be cool to see if we bridge the gap on something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a boss. It could also be a quest, you know, be released at the same time. Or how cool would it be, right? Like, this to me would be absolutely epic, and I know this will never happen because this is a way of forcing people to play the other game, and I don't think you should ever be doing it. I think you should always leave people into their own realm, into their own game. But how cool would it be if there would be a quest line where the first quest is in old school RuneScape, the second quest in RuneScape 3, the third quest in old school RuneScape, etc, etc. I think that would be absolutely epic, and I would absolutely love it. But obviously I understand that that could never happen, because then to get the full quest line for the people who care about it when it comes to lore, you will need to play both games. And how will that work? Will you be able to get the quest, like let's say quest 2 is in RuneScape 3, will you be able to just start the second quest in RuneScape 3, or do you have to do the old school one? There's a lot of issues there, but I do think it would be awesome, at least from my personal point of view, when it comes to questing. But even something like the recent woodcutting rework that both old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3 had, I think it would just be cool if both games got something similar, because I think that both teams, right, are very talented. The old school RuneScape team and the RuneScape 3 team are both really talented and have their own ideas. The old school RuneScape team recently came with the Forestry update, which looks very interesting, and it's pretty much an overhaul and a rework to woodcutting, not on the experience side, but more so on the activity side. It makes it a lot more social to do woodcutting, because before that update, it pretty much was that you wanted to hop whenever someone was on your world, because it would reduce your XP rates, and now when there are people there, it will increase your XP rates ever so slightly, obviously on the old school manner. It's not like RuneScape 3 where you suddenly get like 200k experience, but still, it is good, and you get some useful rewards from it with all the bark and all the other stuff that comes from Forestry, right? But at the same time, RuneScape 3 had a rework as well on woodcutting, more so on the backend code side, where XP rates were tweaked, but also something like the Dragon Hatchet finally functioned as a tier 60 instead of like a tier 55 or whatever it was. And the Crystal Hatchet functioned properly. That's the boring stuff. But pretty much we also had a bit of a woodcutting rework. But the thing that I just wonder, right, in this case, I would say the old school version is way better than the RuneScape 3 version when it comes to the woodcutting rework. What if they just use that idea as well and put it in RuneScape 3, and obviously RuneScape 3ify it, but have that idea from old school RuneScape directly transfer over in RuneScape 3. And I think that could happen in reverse order as well when it comes to certain updates as well. I think something like the fort that we recently have to build near Varrock, obviously don't remove the lumberyard in old school RuneScape because nostalgia stuff, but have something similar to the fort in old school RuneScape, where it's this quest line surrounded about the fort, where maybe you get some passive unlocks that could be useful. Obviously balance them around old school RuneScape and make it make sense, but I do think that could be cool. And I think the ultimate thing of that in the future would be a skill, and obviously that would never work because old school RuneScape needs to vote on their updates and RuneScape 3 can just do their updates. But how sick would it be if Necromancy, or well, Sailing is probably a better example, would release in both games at the same time, where RuneScape 3 kind of waits for old school RuneScape to decide what the hell they're going to do, and then RuneScape 3 to be like, okay, we're also going to make our Sailing skill, but we're going to do it just like you did, but also in our own way. I think it would just connect the games a little bit more, because right now I feel like both games are a bit detached from each other, which in a way is good, because I don't think an old school RuneScape player wants to play RuneScape 3 and vice versa. But I do think on these things where it could make sense, at least from my point of view, it would be really awesome to see some sort of a crossover coming from old school RuneScape to RuneScape 3 and vice versa. But that's just my opinion. These are just my thoughts, right? Like, I just love both games. I play both games. I'm 2k total on old school RuneScape. I one day want to max, which Hopium probably will never happen, but hey, maybe it will. And RuneScape 3 obviously is my main game. I built my entire channel around it and I absolutely love it, but I just would love to see like both games have something, and just, you know, we can enjoy something as a community. Because imagine if we can use the talent of the old school RuneScape team and the talent of the RuneScape 3 team together to build something incredible, because they both have different point of views, they both have different talents, and, you know, just in general ways of developing content. And if they can combine that, we can come with incredibly epic gaming proportionate updates, at least in my opinion. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think, and if you did enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. My name is Chivalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Good.